Hi, Kevin Coop here, and this is FaceTime with the Content Guy. So, one of the things we talk a lot about here on Morning Newsbeat is the whole notion of generational differences and how it's important not to practice epistemic closure, to understand that other generations may have different frames of reference and different priorities in terms of how they think about the world. And especially if you're in a leadership position, it's important to understand other people's opinions, other people's frames of references, because that's the best way to be a great leader. That's the best way to be a great communicator. But the thing is, as important as I think it is to reach across generations, sometimes there are things I just can't do. For me, there are things that are a bridge too far. For example, when I write emails, it's sort of rare that I use things like LOL, okay? It just doesn't feel right to me. When I write emails, I tend to try to use full sentences and I try to spell out words. I think that's a respectful thing to do. Occasionally, I know here on Morning Newsbeat, I might use IMHO or BTW because, but I always feel like I'm cheating somehow. But I'm trying to be hip with the lingo, right? One set of letters that I use occasionally will be WTF, but frankly, it would be ruder not to use the letters in that case. But there's also something else that kind of I just can't let go of in terms of the way I like to approach things. And maybe I'm being a cranky old guy here saying, get off my lawn. But I just wish the world would come around to my way of thinking. I'm going to give you an example. I want to show you a couple of sentences, okay? There you go, right? It says this is a sentence and this is a second sentence, okay? See how that looks? Now I'm going to show it to you again. I'm going to show it to you again, and here it is, right? This is a sentence and this is a second sentence. But they're not the same. And I'm going to show the two of them to you on two sentences or the two phrases on the paper together, and you'll see why, right? Top one says the same thing as the bottom one. But the big difference is that on the top one, there's two spaces between the first and the second sentence. And on the bottom one, there's a second. Now listen, I don't know who drilled this into me, whether it was the editors at the Rockland Journal News all those years ago, or it was some typing teacher in high school, or it might have even been the nuns. But I was taught the way to do it, the way to separate out your thoughts is two spaces. And I'm hanging in with that. I think the world ought to change, and that ought to be the rule. Two spaces in between sentences. It separates things out just a little bit more. And listen, I see enough college papers where, listen, familiarity with sentence structure is tough enough. Two spaces. It separates things out. It's the way things ought to be. Now, I recognize this is an old guy way of thinking. I'll also point out here that Michael Sansolo, when he writes columns and stuff, he only uses one space. He apparently is thinking younger than I am. But I'm hanging with it. Two spaces is better than one. I'm starting the campaign for that right now and right here. Anyway, that's what's on my mind this Thursday morning. And as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.